First link that you're getting, collab.research.google.com. And here, go to the GitHub one and just type out the here in the repositories, as I showed earlier, we have to go to the repository Python classes and select the branch 2022 session. Make sure you select that branch. And yeah, so we'll be starting the first module. The first module is types and variables. Uh, as you, are you guys able to follow? I hope you guys are able to follow till here. I'll wait for a minute for you guys to open this, and then we'll start. Yeah, so Sorry about that. I have a problem with my Wi-Fi connection. Just reshare again. Yeah, so is my screen visible? Can anyone see once?
Yeah, it is.
So, so yeah, as I said, you just have to search Google Colab and go to the first link, and then we have to go to GitHub one, and just type KOSS IIT KGP.
Ananya, your screen is froze.
Okay,
Just
is it
wait for a
fine?
minute. No,
Yep.
it's still stuck.
All right, so I hope my screen is visible. So I'll show you how you can start the collab. So you can just go and search for collab on Google, and you can go right here. Yeah. So now you will go to GitHub and you can search here for KOSS IIT KGP, and you can search for that. Yeah. You will go to Python classes, and for the branch you will choose the 2022 session. All right. And now in this will you'll find many Python notebooks. So we'll start with the first one, types in variables, and that will just open up right there. It will take some time to open. Yeah. So does anybody have any doubt in this? Can ask in the chat. Okay. So I'll do this one again once again. No problem. So you'll open collab. All right. I think everybody has followed till that point of time. So you'll open collab from Google. Okay. Now, once you open the collab, you will find yourself with this window right here. So I'll wait for you guys to follow till this point of time. Okay, so for those who can't get this right here, can also actually open it from file. So you can just go to file and you can new notebook. Sorry, my bad. Not open notebook. It will come in under new notebook. Open notebook will just create a new notebook. My bad. So just go to file right here and click open notebook. And in this, you'll just go to GitHub, this tab right here. There are 5 tabs. So you'll go to GitHub. And for this, you will search for we have a KOSS IIT KGP GitHub uh, account. So you'll search right here, KOSS IIT KGP, and then you'll click on the search. I'll wait for it to show up. Okay, that's weird. You can also put the GitHub link directly as well. So what you can do is you can just go right here and you can just paste this thing. Yeah. So you'll see that there's a repository as Python classes, and for the branch you can just choose 2022 session, and you will find all the related books to that right here itself. So if anybody has any questions for this, they can ask in the chat. I can answer them. Yeah, so if you're searching for KOSS IIT KGP and it is not showing, you can just paste the link itself that Ananya, I think, posted in the chat before. So you can just paste that directly into this thing right here, and and then you can select the branch from there itself. Yeah, Amrita also posted uh, the GitHub repository link in the chat. You can just paste that thing. So once you're through, you can just wait for a few moments. Okay, so I hope everybody has done it. So once you're through, you can click on basic course 1, types and variables, and you can follow along right here. So what are we going to learn today? So how to program in Python language, and what is Python language, and why there is such a buzz about it. So the topics that we'll be covering for this workshop today, sorry. So the topics that we'll be covering for this workshop are types and variables, Then we'll go on to strings and booleans, then conditionals, lists and tuples, and then in the end we'll go for to the for while loops and all such things, then functions, and then finally the dictionaries in Python. So by the end of the session, we would like everyone to be comfortable with these concepts. Then in the future, then we can maybe conduct an advanced Python workshop. And for these will be prerequisite. For now, it's not as such not needed. So you don't have to have a Python background or any such thing to be able to follow along right now. So how do you run a code right here in this collab, and what is this collab? So this collab is a thing where you can just where you it is developed by Google, of course, and what you can do is like in 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 this okay, sorry, my bad. So there are two ways you can run Python code here. One is interactive mode, is another in script mode. All right. So first is the interactive mode that you will see is used a lot in this. So in this interactive mode, you can just play on this. Of course, you will for the first time on every notebook, you will be given with this warning. This is saying that this particular snippet of code or Python notebook is not maintained or not authored by Google. So of course, when you're given any such notebook, you can't just run it, and because there can be any malicious practice within it. Python can do anything to your system anyway. So it's a good habit to know what you're running, and it's a good practice to know that the code that you will be running is actually, well, not malicious. So I know this code is written by us, so I will go and run anyway. Besides just a print statement. So yeah, print hello world in Python. So when you run this code, okay, it's running for some reason. Yeah, I don't know why it took so much time, but yeah. So when you print, yeah, you can pass in a string. So the string is anything uh, that is covered by two quotation marks at the end. So one is before hello and one is after Python. And you can pass that in a print function. So we'll go two functions in later. So for now, you can know that print statement, you will pass in a string and that will be printed exactly as it is. Of course, you can also edit it. So you can edit this line of code anyway, how you like. So you can just write anything and then you can try to print it, and then it will print them as it is. So that's clear. Now, so the next mode is the script mode. Uh, if if you were maybe seeing the title of this notebook, you can see there's types and variables dot I, Py, and B. So it's a interactive Python notebook. All right. So in the script mode, you can store the code in a file that ends with a .py. So it will be a .py file, and you can of course copy the above line of code and call, or you can just paste it in a text file and then save the file as a .py, hello world.py. And then for executing it, you can execute that in your system. So of course, we won't be doing that. We will just be using this interactive mode, which is much simpler and much more interactive. Right. So you should, so it's a good practice. Once you're done, you should save your code as a script if you're writing anything more than a few lines. So if you're writing, say, maybe 10 or 20 lines of codes, you should always save it because you never know when you're going to need it next. Right. So of course, if you're having any doubts or if you feel that I'm going a bit fast, then of course you can write it in the chat. I will slow down and maybe try to explain. All right. So Next comes the types of, so the types of variables in Python. So many of you might be in first year, so uh, and and many of you and then half of you exactly might be learning about C programming language in your PDS class, if that so. In that course, you see that there's C, and then you declare your variables like int x, then float y, and there's double z. So all these numbers can be declared, of course, the semicolon at the end. So you don't use semicolons in Python, of course, because it's a interpreted language, so you don't have to use that one. Yeah, so in computer programming, a variable is a storage location. So it is stored physically on a memory disk and associated symbolic name, which is an identifier. So my bad, sorry. So an identifier, right? So identifier for this int x is known as like, so this x is right here is the identifier for that variable, which contains some known or maybe unknown quantity of information, which is a value. So value can be an integer, a floating point number, or maybe a double. So you might know that integer is like how much. Okay, so yeah, we won't be covering that. So for Python, uh, they can be just simply declared x is equal to 343, which is an integer, or y is equal to 43.24, which is a floating point number. So you don't have to declare that it's an integer floating in. Python can just do it automatically. So here x and y are identifiers, and 343 and 43.24, those are floating point numbers. So variable names in Python can contain alphanumerical characters from A to Z, capital A to Z, 0 to 9, and some maybe special characters such as underscores. Now, normal variable names should start with the letter. All right, so they usually start with X or Y. In some very special cases, you can use underscore underscore. So maybe, okay, my bad again. In some maybe very special cases, you can use underscores. So they can start with maybe underscore underscore main underscore underscore. These are some variable names that are used, which you might have seen in some scripts and might not know what it means. So yeah, it's just a variable and nothing more. Don't be too intimidated by it. So by convention, of course, variables names start with lowercase letters. A class names, which which we'll see in the future. The class names start with an uppercase letter. So yeah, here you can see variable names x and y starting with x and y, small x and small y. In addition, there are a number of Python keywords that cannot be used as variable names. So these keywords are like and, as, assert, and all these things. So because while loops, as you have seen and even see, or maybe you will see in future, if so these keywords are operators and used in this language. So yeah, you can't use them as variable names because it will just break the entire code unnecessarily. It's just unnecessary, right? So yeah, let's move on. So yeah, be also be aware of the keyword lambda. It could easily be used. It could easily be a natural variable name in scientific programming. So it being a keyword, it cannot be used as a variable name. All right. So lambda is that case. Now we'll talk about assignment. So assignment operator in Python is the equal to sign. All right. So you use the equal to equal to sign to assign a value to a variable. So Python is a dynamically typed language. So we do not need to specify the type of variable that we will create one. So you can see right here, we don't have to mention that it's an integer. Python can just do it automatically. So you will just use a assignment operator, which is the equal to sign, and then you'll just assign the value right there. so it's no big deal. In C, of course, you have to mention that it is an integer or whether it's a float. So you don't have to do that in Python. All right. So it is dynamically typed. So you don't have to assign what kind of variable it is before assigning it. So variable assignments. This is so x is equal to uh, okay. Please refrain from disturbing in the workshop. So yeah, so x is equal to 1.0. This will be a variable assignment, right? So here 1.0 is a floating point integer. So you can use underscores between between the variable name as well. So my underscore variable is equal to 12. So that is absolutely fine. You can use as many underscore as well. It's just gonna be the same. As you can see when I run it, it's not gonna show any error because it's completely valid. So yeah, once I run this snippet of code again, so now I can run this snippet of code, and as you remember the print statement before, now I will tell you what type is. So type is an operator. It's a function actually. Type is a function that takes in any variable and then it returns the type of that variable. All right. So like the print statement, what it does, the print statement takes in a string or any variable and then it returns and then it actually does print that statement. Okay. So for type, it's a function. It takes in a variable name. It just takes a variable and then it tells you what kind of variable it is in a string. And then you can use that print on that type to print what kind of variable type it is. All right. So first we will be using for the first one, we will be finding what kind of variable X is, then my variable, and then name Ram. So when I run this, you can see class float. So X is a floating point integer because we use 1.0. Then the next one, type my variable. My variable, we just use 12. So it's an integer, int. And then for the next one, ram, it is a string. So it is str. It's a string. Now, if I just do instead of 1.0, I'll just do a 1. I'll then run this snippet of code again. And then when I run this one, you can see it has turned from floating point number to an integer, right? Yeah, so in Python as well, you can take inputs. So that's a topic for some other time. So you can, of course, you can take inputs in Python, just like in C. And of course, it's a much simpler process than in C. So you will see that later, pun intended. So here x is equal to 1. You can type that in. You create the type. Of course, you can do that with so since this is the interactive mode, you can just do type x and then it will show you that it is an int. You can also just cover that in a print statement and then you can run it. It will just give you the exact same result as before. So it's an interactive mode. That's why you can do these kind of things. So I can maybe also do this. I can just type x and then it will just give me the value of 1. Yeah. Sorry for that. So of course you can just type in x and then since it's an interactive mode, it will just take the last statement and it will just print that one. So it's absolutely fine. All right. So yeah. So for the next one, we get an email when we try to access the variable name which has not been defined. All right. So right here you can see in all these snippets of code above this one, we have not seen any y. So y has not been assigned anywhere. And as you can see, Google Colab is trying its very best to show us this small yellow curly line to show us that there's some kind of error right there. So when I try to run it, it will just show me it's a name error, which you can see we call that one above. And it is also very important to know um, how you have to interpret an error right here. Okay. So for the traceback error, you can see it is going to trace back to the most recent call last, which was the last call where it found an error. So it will just show you the line number and then what code or snippet it is, and then it will it will tell you what kind of error it was. So it will just show you name y is not defined. So if any one of you has worked with, say, you know how troublesome the errors in C are and how hard they are to interpret. So Python is relatively much more simpler than that. You can just know how it will just show you the name y is not defined. Simple as that. So if you maybe do y is equal to 3, all right, and then you will run this again. No errors shown, absolutely no errors shown. Then you can just write t, and it will, for the last one, x was 1, y is 3, and it will give you t as 4. So absolutely no problem at all. Right. So now I hope uh, now Ananya will be taking over for the from multiple assignments. So Ananya can take over.
So just share my screen real quickly. So is my screen visible?
Yeah, Ananya, it's visible.
I'll be taking multiple assignments, and I think Aditya did a good job explaining. So multiple assignments is just like we are showing that Python is flexible in terms of its syntaxes. So we can just in one line we can give multiple uh, variables their values. So just like here, and they don't have to be the same types. Like it can be int. Like in this example, you can see that A is assigned the value 5. It's an int. B is assigned the value of 3.2. It's a float, and C is a string. So they don't need to be of the same type, and they can still be assigned in the same line. So that's what multiple assignment is. And yeah, uh, so that's as we can see when I print ABC, it's showing 5, 3.2, and hello as was expected. So there's one more thing that we can do in Python is we can okay, sorry, so I didn't run this. So that's why it's showing an error. Yep, so it's fine now, 5, 3.2, and hello. So one more thing we can do in Python is we can assign the same value to multiple variables at once, just as we can see here. So x, y, z all are going to be given the same string value same. Yeah. So as we have mentioned briefly before too. So and we like also know this from our C language that there are different type of data types. So very fundamental ones are integers. So here x is 1, and when I run this, so if I want to see what type x is, so Python will show me int, and here x is 1.0, so it shows me float. And there's another kind of data type known as Boolean. So Boolean is actually true or false. It true corresponds to 1 and false corresponds to 0. So it only gives 0 1 kind of output. So when I run this, so B1 is bool data type. So we'll be talking more about booleans later shortly. So another very awesome thing about Python is that we can also show complex numbers in here, which is not something we see in C or C++. So the syntax here is actually we denote iota by j instead of I, which is the usual notation. We denote the iota by j. So as we can see here, I have given x equals to 1.2 minus 1.2 j. So if I run this and I want to see what type X is, so it will give me complex. And printing X will give me 1 minus 1j. And yeah, so I can also like take the real part. I can also just take the real part of the X, and I can use X dot real to achieve that. And similarly for the imaginary part as well. So yeah, that's what this is about. This is pretty cool. We don't see it in C or C++. So before also, as I talked before, like typecasting, uh, in type, like we can change variables from one type to another, like from int to float, from float to double, something like that. So that's what typecasting is, and we are using inbuilt functions to do the typecasting, the inbuilt functions in Python. So seeds. Here a is 1, and when I print a, it's going to give me 1. But if I make it float a, so it's going to make me give me 1.0, which is a float now, and it's not an int anymore. So that's how we are typecasting it. Here, z is a complex number. So it's showing me 2 plus 3j is 3j. So here, if you can see that z dot image image is actually 3, and 3 is an int. But if I make it float z dot image, so it's going to give me 3.0. Yeah, 3.0, as we can see, because I'm typecasting it to float instead of making it into int. And as I showed before, so here a was 1, it's an int, but I can also make it to complex a using the function, and it will show me 1 plus 0j. So and similarly in 45.55, it's going to round it, it's going to be clipped off, and it's only going to show me 45. Yeah, so Python has also this thing called list in it. Uh, so here it is a sequence of a list can be a sequence of many things that we can store, right? We will be talking about it more in this session only further. So it's actually an ordered sequence of items. So if I print this a, let's say, so I'll first get 1, then 2.2, and then Python. It's an ordered sequence of items. And it can be of different data types, as we can see. So we have int, float, and string all together. It can be of different data types, but it's an ordered sequence of items. That's all a list is. We will be talking about this more later. And so tuple is also an ordered sequence of item, but the only difference is that tuples are immutable. So I'll be talking about mutability. So a class is immutable if each object of that class has a fixed value upon instantiation, and that cannot be subsequently be changed. So for example, a string is actually an immutable immutable data type. So the thing is, I can't just change one value of this string, like hello world. So let's say I can make it bello world. I can just change the h, first h to b, or to small h, let's say, just given in this example. So this is what we mean by mutability. So string is a data type which is not mutable. So yeah. So yeah, but as you can see here in the next example, we can change the whole string. We can just change one part of it. We can, if we want to change, we have to change the whole string. So first I was given the string hello world. Now as here we can see that I can change just the first index element, not just the h, but I can change the whole string altogether, and then it won't show me any error. And if I print it, it is showing hello world. So these are the this is a table. You can see, go through it once, that which class types, which data types are actually immutable and which are not. So yeah. So these are some questions. I think you should try them on your own, and if you have any doubts, you can post it in the general chat box. So yeah, so this is all about types and variables. Let's go to the second module. Uh, Again, we would go to the Google Colab and GitHub, again, KOSS IIT. I think everyone is pretty clear with the Google Colab thing by now. And again, we'll go to the Python classes repository and make sure you go to the 2022 session branch. And then we'll go to the second path, basic course to strings. Yep, so let's start. Yeah, so I briefly mentioned strings before in the previous slide. So we saw that strings, uh, if anyone is familiar with C before, they must be knowing what strings are. But it's no issue. We will go through the strings here now. So strings are the variable that are used for storing text messages. So you can use the alphabets A to Z or small alphabets A to Z or special characters like that. So yeah, and guys, if you have any doubts, just put it in the chat box. Like the chat box is for you guys to ask any doubts. Just uh, feel free to ask any doubts. Yep. So see, I'm going to continue with the strings now. So here s is a variable and I'm assigning it the string value hello world. So when I run through it, we run anyway, taking some time. Yeah, so as you can see, it's returning the type value string only str. So yeah, so we have to see this. So let see the length of the string. Had it been in C, then we would have gotten a length of HELLO, so 511 blank space character 6, and then 511, and then a null space null character that we get in C. So getting the length of the string in C would have given us a length of 12, but in Python you can see the length is giving us 11, so there's no null character as such that is taken into account in Python. So that's a thing that's different from C or C++. um, yeah, so uh, s is as I mentioned there before in the types and variables Google Colab, that strings are immutable. You can't change just one index of strings. You have to change either the whole string or you can't change it at all. It will show you an error if you try to do something like that. But we can access to any index of the string such that just see. So s of 0, so as we know, as we have mentioned before, so in strings or arrays the index starts from 0 and not from 1. So the 0th index means we are trying to reach the first element. So the first element is here is h. So when I run this, it's showing me h. Similarly, if I want to go to s of 1, I'm getting e. Similarly, s of 2, 3, 4, I'll get llo. So yeah, so you can. Oh, and one more thing we can do is we can also access, like we are trying to access it from positive indexes, right? From 0, 1, 2, 3, non-negative indexes, but we can do it from negative indexes too. The only difference is the negative indexes start from the right, like see this string. So if I'm trying to see like this is the index -1, then L is the index -2, R is the index -3, and it goes on like that. So here it's a better example here. So if my string a variable with ss is a string variable and I'm giving it the value Sammy Shark, and so you can see that the rightmost element has the index of -1, and as we go towards the left, the index goes more negative and it increases like that. Yeah, so um, so it had it we can also again give the non-negative indexes to it. In that case, this first s, the capital S, Sammy S, will be 0 index, A would be the 1 index, M will be the 2 index, then the next will be the 3 index, and so on. So each element has 2 indexes to it, a non-negative one and a negative one. So you can uh, like reach it through any of the using any of the indexes. So see, print ss minus 3. So minus 3 one is the r. Okay, so I have to run this. Just a second. Yeah, so I run this. I'll rerun this. Yeah, so I'm getting r. But had it been so I can also achieve this r by, let's say, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So ss 9, which give me the same r. Yeah, so you can access any of the elements by using any of the indexes, either the negative one or the non-negative one. It's fine. It's same. So next we are going to see the string slicing. So let's say we are getting a long string and we just want a particular word from it. Let's say I say my name is Ananya, but I just want a part Ananya from it. So here we see the use of string slicing, and Python has made it very easy for us. So what we are gonna do is, this is the syntax. So here you can see that I'm giving the command print s 0 to 5. So what happens here is, since I'm saying Python to print the string from the 0th index to the 5th index. So what is going to do? It's going to start from the 0th index. It's going to print the 0th index first, second, third, fourth, and to the 5th one, it's going to get sliced. So I'm going to run this. Yeah, so you can see. So uh, where is my s? So here is my s. So you can see. So h is the 0th index. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. O is my 4th index, and 5th is the white space character. So in the 5th one, it's going to get sliced. So I'll get hello. As you can see here, I'm getting hello. Similarly, when I give the command print s from 1 to 4, so it's going to give the result for the index 1, 2, and 3. So 1, 2, and 3 is ELL, and the fourth character was O. So the fourth index is not going to get considered. It's going to get sliced there. So yeah, that's the syntax for here. And another cool thing is, if we wanted to, let's say, get the string from the start, and we just want to mention where we want the slicing to be happen. So we can just give a blank, give a colon, and just give the name of where it is, where we want it to get sliced. So this is going to give me the same hello. Yeah, as you can see, this command and this command are the same, because 0 means we want it from the start, and we can just omit it. And similarly, if you want it to, and if we just want to give how where we want to from where we want the string to get printed, and we don't and we want to reach it till the end we want the string to be printed. So we can use this syntax. We just have to give the index number from where we want to get started, and yeah, till the end it will get printed. So to world. So as we can see, this was my 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 was my white space character. So sixth index is W. So from W to the end, it will get printed. So world, as we can see, world, we get the world here. Yep. So, and if you want to just print S out from start to end, so we can just put a semicolon and not give both. So it will give the whole string, hello world. Yep. And one more thing, what we can do, as I mentioned, the non-negative negative indices before. So as I said that we can access any of the elements by either negative or the non-negative ones. So what I can do is, so here I'm saying that I want the string to get printed from the -4 to the 11th index. So -4 was my A, and the 11th index is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 till K. So I'm commanding Python that I want the string to get printed from A to K. So it should give me arc. So yep, so it's giving me arc. So that's how you can just change any. See, if here too you can just from 6, let's say you want to -5, let's say. Yep, you can get world again. So you can reach any of the elements by using any of the indexes, as I mentioned before. So Another thing that we can do using Python is we can specify the strides while slicing the strings. What I mean by stride is that we can take uh, like one step at a time. Uh, let's just go through the examples. It will be more clear that way. So when I print this from 6 to 11, I'm getting shark, right? And I can obtain the same results by including a third parameter with a stride of 1. So 1 means we are actually going to print the characters one by one and we are not going to miss any. So stride is basically, you can take it literally like step. I'm going to take one step at a time. So when I give this command 6 to 11, 6, 11 and 1, I'm also going to get shark. But let's say uh, if I'm not going to if I'm going to increase this stride, so what is going to happen is let's use this example. So 0 to 12 and I'm taking a stride of 2. So see, I'm missing the characters, each alternate characters, because I'm taking a step of 2 at a time. So I'm reaching it alternate, I'm printing the alternate elements of the string. Yep. So moving forwards, string concatenation and formatting. So concatenation basically means we can join two strings uh, just by giving this plus operator. So in this example, let's say we have a equals to foo and b equals to bar. So a plus b will give me foo bar. And if I give, let's say, 4 white space characters and bc, so it's just going to join both the strings, as you can see. So if I give, let's say, plus here, and I, yep. So we can just get the strings concatenated or joined by just giving this simple operation. What we can also do is, let's say I don't want to give a space here, and I just want but I want to get foo's white space bar, uh, something like this. I want this output. So what I can do is I can just remove the white space from here, and I can give an operator within the plus operator. I can just give a white space character under the inverted commas, and this will give me the same result. Yeah, so foo bar. Yeah, so one thing we should keep in mind is that this plus operator, the addition operator, we should never use it between two different data types. We should not use it between, let's say, int and float, or string and int. We can't do it like that. Int and float we can still do. It will get converted into float, but with strings you should not use it with any other data type, because it won't get added. Just giving an example, see, so summa is in string and 27 is an int, as we all know. So this is not going to, this is showing me an error. So we can't do this. Yeah. So if we want to, let's say, create a string Sammy 27. Okay, so it's Sammy and not Sammy. My bad. Yeah, so if you want to create a string Sammy 27, so I have to convert this 27 into a string from int. So uh, so we can see here. So I've converted the 27 from int to string. I've put into I made them characters in a string instead of keeping them as an int. And now I'm getting the Sammy 27 as my desired output. So, and another thing what we can do, as I mentioned typecasting before. So let's say my variable is 27 and it's an int, but I can typecast it into string. So I will just give this command string of variables. So it's basically string of variable, or you can just write, see, this is also going to give me Sammy 20, sorry, I have to run this first. Yeah. So this is going to be give me Sammy 27. What I can also do is instead of just giving 27 as an input, as I was doing before, I can also write the string 27 and it should give me the same output. Yeah, Sammy 27. So we can just typecast uh, int or float if we have, and into string, and then we can concatenate. String replication is the next thing we are going to talk about. So uh, let's say I want a particular string to get repeated n number of times. That n can be anything. In this example, I want to print out orco 9 times. without typing orco orco underscore 9 times. So I can just do it with the operator star multiplication operator, and I will just give print orco star 9, and we'll see what it's showing. Yeah, so it's going to show me like that. I can also print them in different lines. I will just give the end line command, so end line syntax. So I'll just give that. Yeah, and we see that we are getting line orco in different lines. Yeah, so this is a pretty important part because formatting, without formatting, it becomes a little uh, confusing sometimes. So I can actually give strings inside single apostrophes or double apostrophes. So, but I have to make sure that I'm pretty sure about which one I'm going to use. So if I start, let's say, sometimes we when we are writing a script, writing a story, let's say, so we put the dialogues into uh, double apostrophes. Yeah, sorry about that. So double inverted quote. So in that case, I'll use the single inverted commas in the as to show what the string to declare my string. So here, if let's say I would have used the single here, so it would have just the string would have ended here only, and it wouldn't have read after what is written, and it would show me some weird error. So I don't want that. So I can use it in like this. And another way, like when we are we are having sentences like this, meta KGPs projects are great. So we need a single apostrophe here. So we use the double quotes here to see if I use, let's say, my single apostrophe here. So you can see that this will show me an error. It's going to get ended. The string is going to get ended at the meta KGP, and the rest is not going to uh, get processed. So we don't want to do this. So uh, so we make sure that we are using make use of the single or double matching quotes correctly and intelligently, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, one thing, next thing we are going to talk about is multiple line strings. So what happens is when we are writing a poem, write it in a line, right? Paras kind of. Yeah. So, but the thing is, Python is not going to read anything after the line ends, and what it's going to see is before the semicolon, the invert matching, the matching codes. It's going to actually reach a null character. So this is going to throw me an error. You can see that Python is throwing me an error. So what I need to do is to change this. Either I get all those in the one line and I give the double quote there, then it will work. But sometimes we want the readability to increase. Let's say if my is my screen zooming, if anyone can confirm.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so you can see that sometimes it goes out of the lines, and I have to hover through the screen from left to right. So sometimes we don't want to do it. So what we can do is we can just put the backslash here. So you can see that Python is actually the Google Colab is showing that it's getting corrected. So in this way, we can actually avoid the error, and it will show me. Just a minute. I'm not sure why this is showing.
Ananya, you missed the N in backslash.
Oh, um, Yeah, wait. Um, 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 can you repeat again, Aditya, what you said just now?
Use
Um,
new line break.
Line break. So, and then should work. This should work, right?
yeah,
With what Google Colab was showing. I thought it will get with the black slash too. Fine. No, it's still showing the error. I'm not sure why.
Array, keep the colon outside.
Oh, right. This is no. There's some issue in this. I'm not sure why. We'll get back to it just a little later. Um, yeah. So let's just get back to this later. So one thing we can talk about, I'm not sure what error is coming here. It should work actually, but yeah. So what one thing we do is that new line. This is what I was doing right then because I was just giving a new line character. I'm not sure why Google Colab is not taking it correctly, but yeah. So this is an escape character. So if I give a backslash. So single backslash, so it will give me a new line in a multi-line string. So this is what a multi-line string. So if I just give this, it should give me a new line. Again, it should definitely work, but Google Colab, I think I'm facing some syntax error maybe somewhere else, so that's why it's not showing it here. But yeah, so you can escape character, you can see a new, you can make a new line in a multi-line string, double backslash apostrophe, and let's say we know right then like here, see, so sometimes when we are having apostrophe, let's say, so a single quote, so it has a special meaning, right? So what the backslash does, it removes its special meaning, like here, let's say, like what I'm going to do is, see, it's going to throw me an error because my string has started from here and it's going to end here as it show the second apostrophe. But if I just give this command, so it's going to nullify the special effect of this double apostrophe, double quotes. So yeah, so now it gets printed as you can see, and this is what I'm so if you want any special character meaning to get omitted, so we just give a backslash to it. And yeah, so this is line break as backslash, and this is a tab breaks backslash t. So yeah, you can go through these examples. We can just go through one more. So you can see that this is going to throw me an error because this is the first single apostrophe, quote, and the second quote as well. So I just want to remove the special meaning of this. So I'll just give a backslash, and yes, I'll run it again, and it says hello. You can go through the other examples. Yeah, this is something you can. So raw strings. So what if we don't want a special formatting within our strings? For example, we may need to compare or evaluate strings or use a backslash on purpose. So we won't want Python to use it as an escape character. So a raw string tells Python to ignore all formatting within the string, including the escape characters. So these were the escape characters as we saw this. So here, so we create a raw string and we just give this. See, I'll give you an example. So here you can see that it's see the ASCII code of A61. So this is, and it's going to give me a good example. And this is a new line character, a new line escape character. So change the line to good example. So I don't want this. I want all of this to get printed. So I'll make create a raw string, and I'll give the command print R, and inside that I'll give the string. So yep, see. So none of these escape characters are holding their special meanings anymore. So this is just getting it treated like a simple string, and it's just getting treated like a simple character, and it's getting printed. So one more thing what we can do in Python is string formatting. So what string formatting does is, let's say I don't, Hunter has dash MacBooks. Look, so this under this curly brackets, let's say this is a variable. I have five books. Hunter has five MacBooks for now, and it can change to, let's say, three. So we don't want to change the string again and again. So what we do is we put a curly bracket blank inside the string, and we give the value to what we want inside the string in this syntax by formatting it later. So we give the string, we give a dot, and we see format 3. So as you can see, it gets printed as Hunter has 3 MacBooks. I can just change it to 5, what I was giving in the example. So we don't want to change the string again and again, so we use this syntax. Hunter has 5 MacBooks. We can also assign the variable to be equal to the value of the string, and then use that format syntax as I told above. So here the string I gave is open string is we love and curly brackets. So I want something to get inserted here. So I just write the syntax is print the string name dot format open source. It will be the same if I write open string variable instead of writing the open string variable. If I write this direct string as I did here, I wrote the direct string here inside the double quotes. So if I don't, if I can just assign this variable and then use that too. So that also works for us. And yeah, so if I run it, you can see we love open source. Yeah, so we can also multiple formats. I have new love the two variables and thing. And in this, so in this, when I'm trying to print the string, I'm giving the format open source and software. So these are going to get one by one. So the first blank is going to take this, and the second blank is going to take this. If I'm running this, you can see. Yeah, we all love open source software. So if I don't mention anything, then it's going to get assigned to the placeholders sequentially. So open source is written first, so it will get the first placeholder, and software is written second, so it will get the second placeholder. Yep. So we can see we love open source software is coming here. So, but then, as I said, that we are not specifying anything here, right? We are just creating a placeholder. What we can do is, if let's say I want the open source to go second and the software to go first. So what I can do is I can give the placeholders a number. So Orco, I will give the number 0 and has a pet 1, and I will format it then. So Hunter and Cat. So Hunter is first, so Hunter will go to 0, and Cat is second, so Cat will go to 1. And I should get Orko the hunter has a pet cat, as I said before. But I can change it. I can give the one value to the placeholder here, and I can use the 0 to the next one. So if I run this, so you can see Orca the cat has a pet hunter, which doesn't make really sense, but yeah. So you can, so this is how we can change the sequential order. We can just give the placeholders an index, so we can hover it around that way. Yeah, so we can also give a variable name instead of, let's say, I've given the numbers here. So sequences. So in this example, I've written octo the 0 placeholder, first placeholder A, and there's a PR variable I'm giving inside the placeholder. So what I need to do is in the format, I'm giving cat made. So cat is the first, so it will go to the 0th placeholder. Made is given second, so it's going to the first one placeholder. And then the PR is a variable that I created here. So I'm defining PR and giving it a value, pull request here. So this should give me the code. When I run it, it should give me the output. Octo the cat made a TRS pull request. So that's what I get. So yeah, by default, strings are left justified within the field. So we just like the strings are written from the left only. You don't and the numbers are right justified. So we like if we are writing 20, so it's they are right justified. This is just as indentation. It's not really much anything about it. So specifying type. We can include more parameters within the curly braces of our syntax, the curly braces we are giving here. So you can see as we are going that first it was nothing was written in the curly braces, then we can mention the indexes, then we can also mention a variable. Now we are saying that we can also give more parameter to it such that we can specify the type too. Let's say in this example, print Sammy 8 dash placeholder percent of a placeholder. So I'm giving this the index 0, I'm giving this the index 1, and I want 75, so 75, but I want it in the float format. I don't want it in the int format. So what I'll give is I just give a colon and I'll write F for the float and then I'll run. Yeah, so as you can see, Sammy 875.0, so it has made it into a float, and float has 6 decimal places as we know, float shows. So percent of a pizza, and 1 was pizza, so it has gotten here. But let's say I just want the first 3 digits only, and I don't want the whole 6 decimal places. So I can just see Sammy 80 and point 0.3 means 3 decimal places and percent of a pizza, and this is you can see that it is having 6 decimal places, but as I run it, you can see that it's only showing three decimal places. So if I want, let's say, no decimal places, then I can just show 0f and it will get rounded off in that case. So yeah, so you can see 75, it just rounded off to 75% of a pizza. So now I'm going to talk about some important string functions. So first is split. So split, this function actually splits the string into a list according to the passed delimiter. So let's say my string is text and it's assigned the value love the neighbor. So if I just give the command print text dot split and I don't give anything inside, so it's just going to split in the white space characters at the spaces. I'm going to run it to show you guys. Yeah, so see love and it gets split after here the and it gets splitted after here neighbor. Similarly, if I'm seeing my string is grocery and I want it to split on the commas here this time. So what I can see is print grocery dot split at commas. When I run it, yeah, so it gets splitted here. And if we can also split it, but as you can see, there's no colon in here, so the string won't get splitted. Yeah, so the string is not going to get splitted. And again, what I can do is one more function is string dot replace. So what I can do is I can replace an a thing in the some index, let's say a word in the sentence in a string. So balloon, Sammy has a balloon. I can just replace has by had and okay. So I have to run this first. As you can see, Sammy had a balloon. Another thing I can do is I can make strings upper and lowercase completely. So if let's say SS is a string and its name Sammy Shark, so if I give the command SS dot upper, so everything is going to be in uppercase here, and if I give the command SS dot lower, so it's everything is going to be in the lowercase. These are some a few other functions that we can use in Python related to strings. You can go through these. Let one I'm going to give a few examples such as is numeric. So let's say number is 5. So yes, there's a numeric character here. So this should give me a true. These are actually Boolean functions. So it's either going to give me a true or a false. And here in the second string letters, only A, B, C, D, E, F. So there's no numeric character. So you can just see, yeah, so the first one is giving me true and the second one is giving me false. So These are some hands-on question. Again, I'd like you guys to try these on your own. And if you have any doubts, just post it in the course course teams general chat box. Yeah. So if you guys have any doubt, you can ask in the chat box right now. Feel free to ask any doubts if you have in the chat box.
You guys can also raise your hand if you have any doubt or speak up. Mic is enabled.
Um, yeah, so Aniket just asked, can you please explain mutability part again? So mutability just means that if I'm able to, like, as I give, like I'm giving you the example again of strings. So what happens is, in a string, mutability means you can either you have to change everything. Otherwise, let's say you have a string, let's say s equals to Ananya. So you can change the first A to T only. Either you have to change the whole string or you can just change S of 0 to let's say T. This is not something you can do. So strings are
Uh, I guess Ananya lost her connection. So mutability means whether it's changeable or readable. Like if it's read only, then it's immutable. But when it's mutable, you can read and change. I mean, write operation is also enabled. You can change the string or you can add any characters or delete any characters from a string if it's mutable. So string is mutable data structure in Python. Hope that answers your question. Before moving on to next module, if anyone has any question, please raise your hand or write in chat or use your mic to speak up.
right. Yeah. So am I audible? Question here.
Ananya, can you speak a bit louder?
Um, is- um, Amrita. Yeah. So you mentioned something like that doing something like 0.2f would round it off to two decimal places. Would that round it off or truncate it to decimal places? Actually, I think I mentioned something wrong there. It should truncate two decimal places. What happens is if we typecast it, like if I change float to int, then it like rounds it off. And in this case, it would truncate it to two
No,
decimal
no,
places.
it's always truncate.
It's
We
always
always lose the data.
Okay, so it's always truncated. So my bad. Okay, so it's always truncates it.
And since we are using multi-line strings, that's why we are not using single. When we use single, you saw that we had that issue that you saw, that only first line was initialized. Are you able, Ananya, can you share your screen once again?
Yeah, I'm doing it. So this was the part, right? Yeah. Um,
Yeah, so here you see when we were not having that backslashes, it was poem, the variable poem was having only for one line, and others were ideal. I mean, they were of not of any use. But later, when we want multi-line strings, we can use triple, uh, like, uh, is that clear? Can anybody confirm if that doubt is clear? That is for multi-line strings. If we don't use that, we will just have a variable initialized with only the first line, not the others. Okay, that's cool.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask something. That
I mean, you can call me by my name, ma'am. We don't use you.
okay, sorry. Yeah. So, are there any specific rules for typecasting that, I mean, one part of typecasting is not compatible with the other? For example, int to float is possible and float to int is possible. Now,
Yeah,
if we do int to string,
we
uh,
did right for Sammy
yeah,
27.
yeah, it was possible. Now,
Yeah,
after if we do string to int, it will give an error. So, are there?
because see, int can be a character. Int is a character, right? And the string can have numbers in it. But can you see any integer with any character? Is it
Uh,
possible?
No, ma'am, it's not possible. In this
Huh.
case, it was obvious, but are there any specific rules or is it very flexible?
It's kind of flexible. There are not rules as such, but it's like general thought process. Like integer cannot be A, B, C, D, right?
Yeah. All right.
Huh. So it's like that. But string can be 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
String can
Thank you.
contain all set of characters that we have ASCII characters, but we have limited integers 0 to 9 only. So integers can have combination of those 9. 0 to 9 is 10. So we can have only 10 characters, combination of those 10 characters as integer or float or anything else.
Okay. Thank you. I got it.
Yeah, it's all right.
so I think we are done with the doubts then. I'll go to the next module.
I ask something before you go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
Can you show the question, like the palindrome question, like how can we do using these functions that you have taught? Because like we can use loops, but like how can we do using the functions that you have taught before?
Yeah, questions are an exercise. I'll like you to try it sometime more. We can discuss it once after the session ends. Will it be fine? So questions we were thinking to keep it for the end.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah, so Let's go to 2022 session and we'll go through the third part, Bool one. I'll wait for a minute for you guys to open this.
For palindrome part, we can reverse a string without using for loop, right? Nidhi?
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, so we can reverse a string, and since palindrome is a string and reverse of the string is the same, so we can compare using if condition will be required, right? So we'll read about if else statement.
No, but how can you directly reverse it?
We I guess she discussed functions that we can reverse. Yeah, stride can also be used. -1 will be used for reversal part. I
Okay,
guess it
okay.
was
Yeah.
discussed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's all
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So, just for a reminder, we will just keep the questions for the last. I would like to you guys to try it too, and you can even if it's not after the session, if you try it later, you can still ask any doubts. Like just put it into the queries channel, and we will answer them as soon as possible. So let's go with the third module, which is the bool type. So if you guys have are familiar with C and C++, so you must be familiar with the data type bool. So the Boolean data type is a data type which has only two values, or either true or false. True corresponds to 1 and false corresponds to 0. And yeah, so in here we can see an example. B1 is true, B2 is false. So if I want to see what type B1 or B2 is, in this command I'm trying to see what type B1 is, what data type. Um, yeah, so it's seeing me bool. So B1 is a bool data type. And as I mentioned before, so true corresponds to 1 and false corresponds to 0. So if I put if I want the values of this expressions, 2 plus true, false plus false. So in Python, we actually can treat booleans as integers. So the answers we get is 2. So 1 plus 1 and 0. And these are some things you can try on your own. Bool 0 false, obviously bool 1 false. Bool 20 should give you bool 1, sorry, true. Bool 20 should also give you true. So any non-zero number will give you true and 0 will give you false. Okay, and basic Boolean algebra are and, or, and not. So here's a difference that you see from C++ and Python. In C++, we used to give and, right? So this through an error here. So in Python, we use just the and yeah, it should give me true. Um, so I would like you guys to go through these by yourselves, like just test it out. Like first expect what the output you should be coming, and then check if you're right or wrong. It's actually pretty fun that way. So I won't be going through all the examples. I'll leave you to you guys. One thing I would like to give you here is just see 1 and 1. It should give me 1 because as we know, and for the and operation, uh, uh, both the inputs should be true, then only it gives us true. If one of them is false, then it gives us false. You must have read this in the mathematical reasoning thing we had for G. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. See, so 1 and 0, it will give me 0 because both of them need to be true. So if both of them are true, so as I said, so 0 is false and anything other than 0 positive is true for in the Boolean function, Boolean data type. So 20 and 30, so both are true. So in this case, what it will give is it will just give me the the later one. So 30, it's going to give me that. And in the or case, it's just going to give me the other thing. In or case, it will give me the former one. So 21 or 42, it will give me 21. So you can just go through these by yourselves. And as I said, it's going to be fun if you just expect what the output is going to come and if you see if it's right or wrong. Yep. So yeah, Bool is pretty simple. It's a pretty easy topic, so I don't think I have to go much through it. I'd like to Anushka to take over from here and Take over, Anushka.
Hi, I'll share my screen right now. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start with the module if else. So if any of you are familiar with C, C++, then Python's if else is almost the same logically as C and C++. It's just different in the syntax. For those of you new, basically if else statements are like, first you will give a condition. So if that condition is true, only then the next few statements which are under the condition will be executed. So the difference between Python and C's syntax is that Python, first of all, depends on indentation. So it does not depend on curly braces like C does. So also after the condition statement which we write, we have to put a colon. So if I run this, it's taking a while. So as you know, 2 is greater than 1. So this is a true condition. So if this condition is true, then hello world is printed. Now we can also have what would happen if the condition is false. So that is, suppose if we take this example. So if 1 is greater than 2 is false. So this particular condition evaluates to 0 or false. So this print hello world will not be executed, but the else statement, which is written in a similar syntax, that is else colon, the world is not a beautiful place will be printed. So if I run this, as you can see, the world is not a beautiful place is printed. Now, again, in C, C++, we had this option of writing multiple if statements. So it's in the format that if something is true, then something's printed. If else, if something else is true, something else is printed, else, and so on. So a similar thing is present in Python, and it is in the form of elif. So this basically says that if 1 is greater than 2, then this is printed. Otherwise, if that is false and 2 is greater than 3, then world is even better is printed. Otherwise, if 3 is greater than 4, then this is printed. And if none of these above are true, then the else statement is printed. So note that suppose we write 1 is greater than 2 and hello world is printed, the rest of them, even if they might be true, will not be executed. So if I take this example, the world is not a beautiful place is printed because all of these are false. Now, if I change this, world is even better should be printed. Now, if I change this to, even though the second statement is also true, only the first one will be printed. So even in else, if else statements, we can use logical operations. So as you can see in Python, and is A and D instead of the symbol. So we use, so this basically says that if 1 is greater than 2 and 2 is greater than 3, basically both of these conditions are true, only then hello world will be printed. Otherwise, if these two conditions, either one of them are true, then world is even better will be printed. And if the third condition is not true, then I don't want to live here will be printed. Otherwise, of course, if nothing is true, world is not a beautiful place will be printed. So it's important to note that an else statement is not necessary. So we can remove the statement and there will be no errors. So if else can also be used in strings and lists. So as Ananya said a little bit about lists, they're basically just a collection of data items. So first we can initialize this list like this, and we have a string. So those two are printed here. Now, if 4 in list, this means that we are trying to see if the number 4 or the data item of the list 4 is present or not. So because 4 is present in the list, we will see that, hey, 4 exists in the list. Similarly, if 2 is present in the list, then it will execute these two statements. So here we use the index function. So that is, we want to find at which index 2 is present. So as you can see, the index is 1. So the index should be printed. So similarly, if you see the if of 0 in string s. So here is string S and 0 is present. O, my bad. O is present. So if O exists, should be printed. So this is a similar case where a substring of S is there. Now here, if I run this, I'll explain it through the bool type. So if true, that means true is always true. It's the Boolean expression. So this will always, this conditional is always true will be printed. And not false, basically false will always equate to false in any expression. So not false is basically always true. So if we do if not false, that means whatever condition comes in under it will be printed. Yeah, similarly how they explained in the bool module, 1 is considered true. So 1, 2, or any other number, even -1 is considered true. So if I suppose execute 1, so this is true. Now if I replace this 1 by -1, this will also equate to the first expression being printed. So that means any non-zero number is true. Now if I check for 0 though, you will see that 0 is false. The else condition is printed. So we can test these with examples. So here we have a variable age. So the age is assigned 9. Now, if the age is less than 19, and here you're noting that after we put the condition, we're putting a colon, below which we are indenting everything that is inside the if statement. So we have a message which will be printed. So we can see that the age is actually less than 19. So yeah, your teenager is printed. Now we take the second example where the age is 21. Now you can see that here you're checking that the age should be between 12 and 19. So that is not true. So I mean, I think you can guess that this will not be printed. Now we don't have an else statement. So that means nothing happens. Now I could add an else statement here though. So if I add else here, indented properly, print no, for example. So if I do that, no will be printed. Now we take another example where age is 10. Now as you can see that again, it does not lie in the initial if condition, so the else statement will be printed over here. Now similarly, we can use the same example on elif. So first it will check if the age is between 12 and 19, not. It will go to the next one, it's less than 13. This message, be prepared, you're a teenager, should be printed. So let's see, and there it is. So that's about all you need to know about if else to get started. I'm gonna open the next module. If you have any doubts, please put it in the chat. So going back to the GitHub repository, the next one is tuples and lists. Yeah, so we just learned a little bit about lists in the initial and nothing about tuples. So tuples is very much like a list, but the difference between a tuple and a list is that tuples are immutable. That is, they cannot be modified. So once you define a tuple, you cannot change any data value in it. You cannot delete anything from a tuple, but it is also a sequence of elements. So suppose you take an example. So let's start with tuples first. So here record is a tuple. So to initialize a tuple, what you do is you put it in parentheses. So here, one thing to note is that all of the items in a tuple can be of different data types, which is not possible in C++, for those of you who are familiar with it. You always need to have either an int array or a float array, which is not the case in Python, which makes it really flexible. So here, suppose you have parts and then you also have an int, so it's changing. So now if I run this and print, the tuple will be printed. So you should know that a tuple is defined with parentheses, while a list is defined differently. It is with rectangular brackets. So so even though the elements of a tuple cannot be changed, you can still access all of those elements separately. So if you want record 0, it'll be the first one, part is printed. And just like how we learned in strings, you can also have negative indexing. So here -1 will give the last element, like the same thing as strings. So you get IIT KGP. Now, what should happen if you try to change it? Like record 1 is equal to 21. That is not allowed because it's a tuple. So we would get an error message. And again, because we cannot modify anything in the tuple, it's immutable, you cannot delete any element either. So this will also give an error. So a lot of operations like we learned in strings can also be done on tuples. So there are, suppose we created a tuple details. So this has 2 elements. Now you want to add details to records. So I know that tuples cannot be changed, but they cannot be modified, but they can be rewritten. So what we do here is we rewrite record. So here we add record and details and then rewrite the information that was already there in records. So this is allowed. This will not show an error. So when we print record, you would get all of the elements which were there in record and also in details. So slicing can be done similar to strings itself. So here we have taken 1 to 4. So that means 1 is included and 4 is excluded. So from here, you would start with 20 and go up till third year UG, because the last one will be excluded. Here, 1 to just 1 colon means all of the elements from index 1 will be printed. Another thing we can do is we can skip some steps. So here the 2 which is mentioned basically means the second step. So normally this is by default 1. So we go 1 step at a time. But when we print 2, basically what happens is like 20, we would jump over IIT KGP to third year UG student. So let's try that out. So as you can see, IIT KGP is not printed because we're taking 2 steps at a time. Now we can also get the length of the record in a similar fashion, just length. And we also have max and min functions, which help us find the maximum and minimum of a tuple very easily. So here's an exercise which you could try out after this workshop. Now let's move on to lists. So this is how you would initialize a list. So as you can see that tuples over here was initialized in parenthesis, sorry, and this one is a rectangular bracket. So that is the difference. That is how you tell them apart. So suppose I have 2 lists here. Now I printed both of them. I can create a list 3. So one good thing again about lists like tuples is that it can have any data type inside it. So for example, it can also have a list data type inside it. So here you can see that 45, 23, 7 is a list in itself, which we have as an item in the list 3. So this is really helpful. And also the thing about lists is that you can iterate through them fast and they're just very useful. So indexing in a list is pretty simple. It starts from 0 and suppose the second index in list 1 would be 4. Where's next? Okay, here. So here, 1, 0, 1, 2. And if you want the -1 index, like we mentioned before, it will be the last one, 2. There is also this function dot index. So suppose you know an element. So you know there is 4 in the list, but we do not know at what index. So you can put that in the brace. So I think somebody asked what's the difference between tuples and lists. So the basic difference between tuples and lists is that tuples are immutable. That means they cannot be changed. So as I showed over here, when I tried to change the value of record 1 to 21, it showed an error. But if the record was defined as a list, then that error would not be shown. I hope that's clear now. So yeah, so we were over here about the index. So suppose there is this list 4. So one thing to note is you can also, just like I showed in tuples, you can also add lists together. So we took list 1 and list 2 and saved it in list 3. So now if we print list 4, we would, list 4. So if we print list 4, we would get all of the elements of list 1 and list 2. So list 1 followed by list 2. And now we know that 4, the element 4 basically, is present in list 1. We had defined it here. So 4 is present. So we know that 4 is present, but we do not know the index. So we can put that as an input inside as a parameter. And it will return the index. So it returns 2. So this is 0, 1, 2. Similarly, here we did it for the variable 2, 2, for the item 2. And note that there are 2 occurrences of 2 here, multiple. So it will always choose the first one. So it will print 1. I think there was another question. If I would say you would try the max-min thing out. I should try it myself. Then now you know that 6 is not present in list 4 at all. So if we try to see if what the index of 6 is, so if I run this, we will get an error because there is no 6 in the list 4, as you can see here. Now, there is another function which is really commonly used in lists, that is to add a new entry to the list. So as you know that array in C, or for those who are familiar, an array in C is of a fixed size. So suppose I define an array of 10 elements and then I realize that I have 5 more elements. Adding them would be hard. You could use linked lists, but that is also complicated. So Python has a good option for that. That is this append function. So basically it adds the element to the end of the list. So if we append 100 to the list, 100 will be added at the end. So you can see that here. Now, if we add list 1 and list 2 to list 4, again, 100 is over here. Another easy to use function is pop. So pop can remove any value from the list. So if you don't put any index in the parameter, then pop will remove the last element. But if you do put an index, like suppose here I've put an index 1, it will remove the first index the parameter with the index, the element with the index 1. So here first from list 4, I've popped without a input. So here you would get so basically there's another thing that when you do list.pop, it will return the value of the popped element. So here u is popped. And if you do pop 1, it will pop the item that is at the index 1, that is 2. So 2 is popped. So if I print the list now, it will be the updated list. As you can see that all of the other values, all of the other items have rearranged accordingly. So that is a good thing. You do not have to do any of that work. So another function of list is extend. So suppose we have a list 6, 1, 2, 3, and you want to add that to list 4. So you can directly do list 4 plus list 6. So you would get this. So that is pretty easy for lists. But what if I had a tuple and suddenly I wanted the tuple's values to also be included in one of my lists? So I would just do list 4 plus tuple 1, but that would give an error because you cannot add a tuple in a list. So is there another good way to do it? So that is the extend function. Basically, you take list 4 and you take the extend function for list 4 and you add tuple 1 as a parameter. So when you print list 4, you can see that all of those are added, no error. But similarly, you could always add a list 2 using this extend function. So if I add list 6 here, it would still show the same thing. The 6 was also 1, 2, 3. So it's not like extend is just for tuples. Another interesting function is count. Count would basically give the number of occurrences of one given object. So suppose I want to find the number of times 5 occurs. So here you can see that 5 occurs twice. So if I do that, you would get 2. Another thing, you can easily sort a list. So you can simply just put the sort function to sort it. You can also sort it alphabetically. Like if this is a list of strings, it'll be sorted alphabetically. R, hey, how, you, A, H, E, H, O, U, Y, sorry. Also, if you put reverse is equal to true, you can also get the descending order or in reverse order. Another good feature about lists is that you can insert an element not just at the end, but at any given index. And all of the other elements will also be shifted accordingly. So suppose I want to insert high at the 0th index, that is basically the first element. I want the first element to be high. So if I insert 0, comma, high. So basically the first input would be of what number you want, what index you want it to be, and the second one will be just what you want the value to be inserted. So as you can see, high has been added, and all of the others have been shifted forward. Similarly, if we have a particular list and we want to reverse it, you can just use list.reverse. And because it's a list and not a tuple, you can delete an element of the list. So I'm going to do that. There you go. As you can see, the first element, the first index element, which here is, which over here is how, has been deleted. Yeah, so another thing that you can do to lists is that you can multiply the lists how many ever times you want. So here we've multiplied thrice. That means that the list will be added thrice onto the... I'm sorry, is there a question? Okay, so it'll be added thrice in a list. So if I print this, you can see that all of the elements occur 3 times, and that too in the same order as we had defined. So this is basically multiplying a list. So for those of you familiar with C, C++, you know we have 2D arrays in C++. So the similar thing can be done using lists. So this is very convenient because here we have each row as an element of the initial list. So if you take CNames is the 2D array of sort, and each element of this array CNames is actually a row. So sharks, octopus, squid, mantis, shrimp, sorry, is the first row. And Sammy, Jesse, Drew, Jamie is the second row. So if I print this, it will come in the similar order. So one thing to note is that the first row has 4 elements. Here you could put 5 elements. It would be nothing wrong because you're basically adding a list as one of the data types inside, as one of the elements or items inside our bigger list. So similar to how you access them and access a normal element in the list, you can access these kind of elements too. So here in CNames, we chose the first element, the first index element. So that is the second row in this case. So if you take Sammy, Jesse, Drew, and Jamie, this is the row at the first index. And we use, and then we wanted the 0th index item of this row. So that would be Sammy. So Sammy is printed. Similarly, if we take the 0th element of 0th index element of CNames, we and then take the 0th element of that, you would get shark. So shark's printed here. Now list comprehension is a very important part. This makes our code simpler, smaller, less number of lines. So just to understand it, first let's see how you would, with all of the information you have today, for not today, now, how would you fill in a name letters list? So first we initialize an empty list. So this is how you do that. You just name your list is equal to and nothing in the brackets. So this is an empty list. So now suppose we have a name Parth and we want to add all of the letters of the name inside the list. Now, for those of you who have some idea about a for loop, this loop is basically the letters is saving each letter of Parth. For those who don't have an idea, let's just take it like this for now. And I will be going back to loops in the next module. So here, suppose you have, so here, let's understand how it works. So first letter is a variable. Letter is assigned the value P at first. Then it goes into the loop and name letters is appended. The letter is appended to name letters. So now this list has one element P. Then letter is assigned the value A, which is appended. So now this name letters has 2 elements. and so on. So in the end, when you print name letters, you will have all of the elements. Now this was a 3 to 4 3-line code, if you take it in a way, which can be done in 1 line using list compressions. So here you just use, you just name it, and inside you can write letter for letter in part. So it will just directly do the same thing we did above. This can be also done. So here we are directly printing the letter. Like we got for letter in part, and we're directly printing the letter. I mean, adding the letter to the list or appending it. But what if we want to modify this particular variable and then add it? So suppose here we're trying to print all of the powers of 2 up until range 10. So x in range 10 basically means x gets the value of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 till 9. So here, as you can see, it's getting the value. Yeah. So this can be done in a shorter form by directly here where we've written letters, we can directly write an equation to like 2 power x. So this star star is basically power. So 2 power x for x in range 9. So the same thing should be printed. So there it is. Similarly, we can also have 2 lists and iterate through them. So here we're basically taking x's value as 20, 40, and 60, while y's value is 2, 4, 6, and trying to find the product of x and y for different values of x and y. So we can print this too. I would suggest you guys come back to this after we have covered loops, for loops and while loops for better understanding. So now that we've understood a little bit about list compressions, we can also put conditional statements into it. So suppose I want to print all of the even numbers. So I would print x for x in range 20. So I want all of the even numbers between 0 and 20. And that would be, so I want to directly print x. So I don't want to change the equation of x here, the thing that is printed. But I will print x only if it is even. That is, if the modulus of x with 2, this is the modulus, is equal to 0. So that is how you do it. Note that 20 is not included in the range function. Another thing, you could add multiple conditions. So if this is there, and then if this is also there. So this is kind of like an AND. So both of these if conditions have to be true, only then will y be added to num list. So as you can see, those which are divisible by both 2 and 5 have been added. So there is an exercise over here, so you could try it out later. So some important points about tuple again is that they cannot be modified. So that is the biggest difference that we can have between tuples and this, that you cannot delete or change any element there. So because it cannot be modified, it is more it's like more optimized. So it's faster tuples. So like you would ask, why would you want something that is not cannot be modified? So suppose you're working in a big group or something, and you have some data which you do not want it to be changed by anyone. So that's a way of letting people know that it cannot be changed, and it won't even be changed by mistake. But suppose you have a tuple and you want to change it into a list now. So that is also possible. So you can just like typecast it into a list. So you create a record list, which is basically from the record tuple. So if we print the type of this, you would see it's a list. So just a quick recap on tuples versus lists. This is how you make a list. Basically, the square brackets, while in a tuple it's parentheses. So when I do this, I'm initializing them first. If you see the type, you would see the first one would be list and the other would be tuple. Now, when you change an element of the lists, there is no error because list is mutable. But if you change an element in a tuple, there will be error. So if I run this, you would see that there's an error over here, but the first part is printed properly. This is printed. So this is basically first is a tuple and the second one is a list. Now you can see that both of them have the same number of values and the same values, in fact. So if I find the size is basically the amount of memory or space that it occupies. So we see that the tuple would occupy lesser space than a list. So there is a reason behind this. That is that whenever a list is created, suppose when you create an array in C, then a particular amount of memory is allocated to that array. How much ever you define it to be. Like if you define it 10, then 10 int, then 10 int spaces are defined to it. But in lists, we have the feature to append towards the end of the list, how many ever times we want. So to make it a little faster, what happens is that more extra memory is allocated in the beginning itself. And as you and then like it's assuming that you want to add 4 more elements instead of just the number of elements that are already there. So this makes it faster. So that is why you can see that B has more memory here than tuple, because tuple you cannot change, so it'll just allocate the memory necessary. You can read more about that over here if you need more clarity. So here there are 3-4 exercises. It would be great if you try them out. It'll give you a hands-on experience. So are there any doubts? You could type it in the chat box or speak up. Anything would do. Before we move on to the next module. Okay, I'll open the next one till then. Yeah, so now we come to loops. So loops are very similar again to the C loops, just the syntax is different. Again, Python depends on indentation. So indentation and the colon is the major difference in the syntax. So so what is a loop? To all of you new here, basically it will check if there is a particular condition that is being satisfied, and it will run the same code again and again till that condition is false. So a while loop basically has a condition. So while condition, then there would be a colon, and then the indented, and then all of the code under it would be indented. So let's take an example. So here we have a while loop. First we have a variable count, which is equal to 0. So now here the condition that we are checking is that count is less than 10. So we're printing the count and then we're incrementing the count each time by 1. So it'll keep printing the numbers till 9. So when 9 comes here and is incremented to 10, we see that this condition becomes false. That is, count is now equal to 10, not lesser than 10. So it will exit the loop. So when it exits the loop, it will directly go to whatever is printed over here. So if I have anything over here, then that will be what is executed. An infinite loop is, suppose you take a condition which is always true, like 1 is less than 2, will always be true. So that will never exit the loop. So that kind of situation creates an infinite loop. Now, loops can be nested inside other loops. So suppose you have while I is less than 5, you have defined some j which is 5, and you have another loop inside it which runs till j is greater than 0 and I and j is printed and j is decreased 1 each time. Also, that after that loop is over, we are incrementing i's value 2, which counts inside the loop of the initial bigger loop. So when I print this, I'll run this, so then I'll get all of the, first the I value is defined as 0, and then the j values are keep on changing and they're printed. Then I becomes 1, 2, and so on. So you could see this is how it works. So break, pass, continue are some things that were present in C2, but pass is something new to Python. So break basically means that suppose a loop is running, and if break is encountered, it will just leave the loop and start executing the code which is below the loop. So here, suppose count is 10. Whenever count is equal to 5, it'll just stop running the loop. So it stops at 4, because then count is incremented and it's equal to 5. Continue is a little different. It stops, but it goes back into the loop. So here it gets out of the loop completely. But here, what happens is whenever you have a continue option, it will go back and it will just skip whatever is below continue. So here the print count will be skipped, but it will go back and into the loop, check the condition, come in, check this condition again. So if we check this, count started from 0. But when it came into the loop, this checks out, count became 1. Now count is less than 5. So it encounters the continuous statement. So instead of printing that 1, we directly go back and check if 1 is less than 10. And the same thing continues till 4. So when count is 4, 4 is less than 5. Continue again, goes, checks, and count becomes 5. Now 5 is not less than 5. So this continue is not encountered, and that is where the printing starts. So another thing is pass. So sometimes you're writing a code and you have some if count is less than 5 kind of condition, suppose in this example, and you want some action to take place after that, but for now you're not sure what that is, but you want to test the rest of your code. So a good way to do that is with pass. So right now I don't know what I want to write over here, but I don't want it to encounter an error, because if we leave it just as is, then it will have an error because it will not know what to execute in case count less than 5 happens. So basically, it'll just ignore this area, assume that it's happened and move on. So you could check that out. So here 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is printed. And as soon as count becomes greater than or equal to 5, break is encountered and you just get out of the loop. So for loop for Python is a little bit different than that for C, C++. So suppose you have an list, primes. So these are 4 prime numbers. Now for prime in primes, that is basically here prime is a variable which takes all of the values or items values present in primes. So first prime is equal to 2 will be printed, then prime will be equal to 3 and so on. So that is how it works. As you can see, all of those are printed. Another thing is range. So if we take for x in range 5, that means x will start from 0 and then go up till 5. And 5 is not included, but 0 is included. So if we print, we'll get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So x gets the value of 0, then 1, then 2, and so on. Another thing you can do is, suppose you don't want it to start from 0 and you want it to start from 6 and you want 5 to be included. So you do range 3 to 6. So here 3 will be included and 6 will not be included. So normally this parameter is defaulted to 0. So it always starts from 0. But if you give an example, it'll start from that. So here 3, 4, and 5. You can also add an extra parameter here like 2. So normally this 2 would be default as 1. So 2 means 2 steps at a time. So if we run this, it'll take from 3 to 5 directly. It won't encounter 4 because we're taking 2 steps at a time. So these first and the last one are normally default as 0 and 1. So now there are a few, there's this one exercise which you can try out. Another thing we can do is use continue in for loops too. It's similar to while loops. It's just going to go back into the loop. So here we're trying to print all of the odd numbers. So if the number is even, it'll just continue. It won't print. And if it is not even, then continue will not be encountered and it will print as usual. So that's how it works. Now, one thing that is pretty different in Python is that loops also have an else statement, which is not there in C, C++. So a loop can have an else statement as in, suppose you take this list. So this list has the following numbers. Now we iterate through all of the numbers. So here num will get the value of 11, 33, 55, and so on. So if this num value is basically if it's even, it'll print the list has an even number and it will break. Otherwise, that is, once you've iterated through all of the elements of numbers and you see that none of them are even, or even if there is something even, then it will print else. So as you can see, all of these numbers are odd, so nothing happens and directly the else statement will be printed. Now suppose I add an even number over here, so 55 is changed to 56. So now the list contains an even number. Now else statement is not printed because there is a break statement over here. So the break statement basically gets it out of the loop. That includes the else statement. Now if I remove this break though, both of those will be printed because first it will iterate through all of the numbers. And once that is done, it will see that this condition is false and it will go to the else statement. So similar can be done for a while loop too. So basically it's counting till 5. Once this condition is false, you would say that the count value has reached 5. So each time 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 will be printed. And then once that condition is false, else statement will be printed. So now there are a few exercises over here which you could try out. Aditya will be taking over for the rest. If there are any doubts, you could let me know now or on chat. Both of them are okay.
So if you guys have any doubt, you can post them in the chat. I'll address them. All right. So I'll share my screen. Okay, so hope my screen is visible. So yeah, thanks Anushka, she did a great job. So now we'll start with functions. So functions is it's a block of organized reusable code. So sometimes when you have to repeat a certain task many number of times, so you don't want to just write it again and again. Sometimes you don't know how many times you have to write, and it will be determined by your code itself. So you don't know how many times it will be repeated. So in that case, function is the thing to use. So it's reusable. That is used to perform a single related action. Functions provide better modularity for your application on a high degree of code reusing. So of course you can reuse it many number of times. That's the point of using a function. So as you already know, Python gives you many built-in functions like print, which we discussed in the very beginning. So you can also create your own functions. So these functions will be user-defined functions. So of course, they exist in all the languages, whether be it C, C++, C Sharp, or any or any programming language that you can think of. So first we will discuss the structure of a function. So you can define functions to provide a required functionality. All right. So function, it's just a block that begins with a keyword def. So def. You can see it here is a sample definition. It is not a code. It's just for the syntax purposes. So it is beginning with a def. It is followed by a space and then the name of the function, which is here function name, and then open close bracket. So opening close bracket, and in this bracket you can pass any number of parameters that you will be using inside your functions. So those are called local variables for that function. So we will discuss that later. Don't worry about it if you don't understand. It's absolutely fine. So next, any input parameters or arguments should be placed within these parentheses. So that is the parameter. You can define parameters inside these parentheses. So we will see that later as well. Don't worry. Next up, the first statement of a function can be optional statement, the documentation or string of the function or doc string. So we'll also see that later, so don't worry. This is basically the structure of what you will learn in this slide itself. So the code block within every function start with a colon, so which is right here, this colon right here, and it is indented. So every subsequent thing here is going to be one indentation. So that is the basic syntax, and that is you have to follow. You can't ask why that is so and so. You just have to do it. It's the syntax. So the statement can return an expression. The statement return, sorry, this return statement. So if you maybe, okay, my bad. Yeah. So you can see right here, it's written pass. If I, instead of pass, I can return, sorry, return. So you can use return statement and it will just exit that. So if I maybe use, instead of return here, I can just use it here. So it will just return here and it won't even execute any line of code that is present here, right here. All right. So that is the return statement. We'll use it in the we'll use it subsequently. So return expression, and it exits the function, optionally passing back an expression to the caller. Now a return statement with no arguments is the same as a return none. So it's not going to return anything. So return works the same way it works in C. So you can return integers, you can return strings, booleans, anything you can think of. So this is the basic syntax of a definition of a function, a def function name. Then you can pass in parameters, and then you can maybe do some coding in this. Yeah, you can write snippets of codes in here, and then you can return if you want anything. So next up, this one, this running code. So we will run this code definition, then the function name. You can pass in any name, doesn't matter at all. You just have to use it the same everywhere. Parameter 1, parameter 2. Now maybe I can do, for example, I can maybe do parameter 1 plus parameter 2. All right. So I will have to use return statement, return parameter 1 plus parameter 2. So here it's a string, and in Python when you use string it concatenates them. So when I run this code, it will just run because I did not use print statement or anything. But since this is an interactive mode, what I can do is just return value. I can just mention the variable name and it will just return me the value of what is stored in it. So argument 1 was some value, argument 2 was another value. So some value is printed from here to here, and another value is concatenated right beside it from here to here. All right, so that is interesting. You can also do many kind of things. One parameter plus parameter 2 plus parameter 1. So it will just concatenate them, some parameter, another parameter, some parameter. So yeah, you can do any kind of operation with that. So that's how that's how this return statement works. All right. Now the function name. So the function name right here, this, and then you can just use pass. So you can perform some. All right. Just a second. Yeah, so pass is just the same as you use in maybe for and while loops. So anything after the pass, that thing will not be executed. So if I use char, so if I play this, and then if I use print, all right, it printed. So okay, for some reason, okay, never mind. So yeah, is the concept is basically the same. The pass will just it's just a placeholder. It does not do anything. It's just basically a placeholder. If I do maybe, so if I of course I cannot put two return statements at the same times. So if I do put return statements, then it will just return from the first one and it will not execute the second one. So there's only gonna be one return statement, and just like in any other language. So C has the same functionality. Now, next, this is a definition for returning a square number. All right. So we will pass in a variable named number, and square number is equal to number times number, or subsequently you can also use number to the power of 2. Either one of those works. So this is a power operator. So number to the power of 2, number squared, and you can just return that number. So square 5 is equal to. So here we have mentioned another variable. The variable name does not have to do anything. So you can do blah, 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 but it has to be the same here. So it will be square of 5. So it will be, so blah 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 will be assigned a value of 5 square, which is 5 times 5. So it's going to be 25. So it's just going to print 25, and that's it. That's nothing too fancy about it. Now, you can also use it to maybe find if a specific number is odd or maybe even. So this is used a lot for maybe a lot of different kind of applications. So quite handy to have a function for that. Definition is odd. So mod is just the modulus of a number is equal to percentage 2. Percentage 2 means the remainder after it is divided by 2. So if it is an even number, the remainder is going to be 0. And if it is an odd number, the remainder is going to be a 1. So if it mod is equal to 1, meaning if it is an odd number, then is odd, it's going to return a value of true. So the definition, so the function is odd, and if you pass 3, then this entire expression right here, the value of this expression is going to be true according to this. And of course, if you pass in an even number, the mod is going to be 0. So this statement won't execute, the else will execute, and odd 4 is going to be assigned a value of false. So let's see if that is what actually happens. So yeah, that is indeed what actually happens. 3 is odd and odd 3 is true. So 3 is odd and 4 is even. Now, so there are something called, just a second. Yeah, so there are some things called default arguments in a function. So what default arguments are is that what they do. So when you are writing parameter name in a function, of course you can pass in multiple parameters. I hope that maybe I did not mention that earlier. So of course you can pass any number of parameter names. So you can pass on any parameters. They don't even have to exist. They just have, like, it's just something that you can do. So there can be any number of parameters in this. All right. Of course, if it is not in it. Okay. So yeah, any number of parameters can be present inside this. So now what you can do is you can assign a value to that parameter while declaring it here itself. So age is equal to 25. So even if you do not mention that parameter while using that function, it's just gonna assign it to that default value that is mentioned it right here. So when I play this, as you can see, what happens here is that it goes to the function printed. First of all, it goes right here. It calls the function. It assigns up age 19. So it overrides this one, and it will print this name is Aditya and print age. Age is overwritten by this 19. So age name Aditya, age 19. For the next one, it's gonna call this function, and the name will be assigned Aditi, but age has not been overwritten. So age is going to be a constant 25. So name is Aditi and age is 25. All right. Now you have to be careful with these things though, since these arguments that you will be passing inside of it. So age 25, these arguments are mutable as it has been explained earlier. These are mutable arguments. So for example, if you pass in a list, you can, of course, list is an object. So don't worry about it too much. It's just, you can even pass in anything else. So for this particular example, list, you can pass in a list as well. I know it can be a bit daunting, but yeah, just go with it. So you can pass in a list, and when you append the list, you can append a 10 to the list. All right. And then you can print my list. So so this gotcha function is gonna be called just once. All right. So when I play this, it's going to create an empty list. It's going to append 10 to that list, and it's going to print that list. So it's just going to print this. Now, what happens if I call that function 2 times subsequently? So what's going to happen is, as you can see, it's going to first print 10, and then for the second one, it's going to append 10 again to that list, because my list right here is actually saved. It's mutable, so it can be edited and and it is saved in memory, and it will just call that variable again, and it's going to append 10 again to that list, and then it's going to print that. So it's going to print 10 two times. If I do 3, it's going to print 3 times. So you have to be just careful when you are dealing with mutable types. So because they are retained in the memory. Now functions, now the variables that you will be using inside definitions. So there are two kinds of variables. There are local variables and there are global variables. So actually they're not exactly called that. They just have local scope and they have global scopes. So what is the meaning of a if a variable has a local scope? So if for example this in scope 1, if you just define, maybe you can see x is assigned a value global, that is a string, x is equal to global. And if I just play this, so I can just tell my CPU, whatever that is processing all this script, that so that it can keep a track of all these definitions. Now if I play this first one, just the first definition, that is scope 1, if I play this one, what it's going to do, it's just going to print x. So you can see in this right here, there is no the x is not at all defined anywhere. So x is nowhere to be found in this part of it, but it still prints global because x has a global scope right here. For the second one, x is defined inside the function and then it's going to be printed. So if I play this, x is no longer global, x is my local, which is defined inside the function. For the third one is a bit tricky and you have to be careful with that. So the third one, if you print x, you would expect that it's just going to print global. But that's not quite the case because x is defined inside the function itself. And because of that reason, x now has a local scope. And because of that, x is defined right here and it is used before it is assigned. So what happens when you use a variable before you assign it? It's going to throw you an error, and it's going to throw you an error that local variable x referenced before assignment. So of course, if I comment it out and if I don't use that and then I play it again, okay, it's going to throw me an error again. Oh, sorry, I have to play this definition again. Yeah, now if I play it again, now it's going to just print my local. So you have to be careful with the scopes, so because they are a bit tricky. Now variable length parameters. So it's just a simple argument that if you do not know how many parameters you will be inputting inside a function, so what you do is just you use this star v. So star v is just that you can print any number of parameters. So v is maybe anything. So whatever is in the v, it will be stored in a tuple and it will print that. So we'll pass on the definition. And if I use all these arguments, maybe I will add just more just in case. And then it will just create a tuple of those and it will print all of them. So that's how you can include multiple parameters inside a definition. It has no boundary. It's completely dynamic. So docstring. Now docstring, as as it was mentioned earlier, it's quite a nice thing to have. So sometimes when you see a documentation and something like that for a high level programmed or maybe a high level script, you will see sometimes that it's mentioned that after a definition, it will keep with these three quotation marks. So that signifies that this thing is a paragraph, so you don't have to edit it further. You can just write it however you want. So you can write what this particular function actually does. So this is a sum function that takes in two parameters, num1 and num2, and this is basically a description, a function that calculates sum of two integers. It will give you parameters and what it returns, and then the function itself starts. So okay, sorry, my bad. So for this one, what you can do is print sum 1, 2. So Of course, the answer is going to be 3 because it's just going to print the sum of 1 and 2. Okay, I have to do maybe something else. Oh, I have to pass this, my bad. So sum is going to be 3. Now I will omit it out and I will print this. So sum.doc, what it essentially means is that it will call that, it will not call that function actually. It will just give you the doc of, it is just a parameter. So it will just print you to the doc, and the doc here, right, is here. So when I play that, you can see it will just print what the description of that particular function is. So that is quite handy, and it's a good practice to keep all the documentation within the script itself. So it's always hands-on whenever you need it. Note, it's very trivial example with no real use. To understand implications of this, please, of course, read about closures in Python. So that is, maybe you can do it in your own time, closures. So now an exercise. So what you have to do is you have to write a function named greetHuman to ask user for his or her input greet and print a greeting. If the user enters no one, then print voila, more coolest. That's all. So you can do it right. You can do it right there. So another question, I will do this one. So write a function that prints the first n elements of a Fibonacci sequence. So you all know that what a Fibonacci sequence is. So let's just do that. Fib n. So what this function is going to do, it's going to take in take in a variable n, and what it's going to do is it's going to print a list of all the Fibonacci numbers from the first element to that point of time, till that n. So let's assign the first number of the Fibonacci sequence, that is going to be 0, and the second one, that is going to be 1. All right. Now what I will do is I will keep a track of all the Fibonacci sequence of the Fibonacci numbers. So for that I will create a list. So for that I'll just create the fibs, and in it I will create f1 and f2. So these will be the first two, and then I can just append all the subsequent numbers. I can just append all the subsequent numbers inside it. So what I will do next. So of course, if n is less than 2, I will have to return that function. So I'll pass in that real quick. If n is less than 2, then just return. So it will not going to execute any further, and it's just going to return. All right. So next up, I will go through all to the range from the first number in range n, and then what I will do, I have to keep a track of 3 variables. So the last one I will name sum. It's going to keep the sum of the Fibonacci sequence f1 plus f2, and then I will have to pass on the values. All right, so since I have now the sum, this right here is going to be the new f2. So the value in f2 is going to be so the value in f2 is going to be what the sum is, but I have to keep also the track what the value in f2 was. So I will assign that to f1, and now f2 can be sum. All right. So at this point of time, now I have the sum variable right here. I can append it to the list. So as you know, it will just add that number to the sequence. And now once the entire loop is confirmed, now the entire loop has happened. Now I can just print that list, and it will just print it. Now if I execute it, nothing is going to happen because I have not called the function yet. I have to call the function. So I will do fib4. By the way, there is going to be one mistake in here. So let's see what the mistake that is exactly. When I call fib4, it has to give me the first 4 elements of the Fibonacci sequence in a list form. And what is going to do? The sequence are correct. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. It's correct. But it has given me the first 6 elements, and I asked for the first 4. So what wrong here was, I have already assigned the first 2 elements, and then I am going to assign for the range n, and here the range n is going to be a 4, and this loop is going to run a total of 4 times. So it's going to be 4, so it's going to give me 4 extra numbers. So I'll just do -2, and if I run it again, it's going to work perfectly. So yeah, that's it for the functions. If you guys have any doubt, you can post them in the chat, and we can answer them. So yeah. I'll give you some time. Okay, so if nobody has doubts, we will move on to the next one. Of course, I will update this Python notebook in the GitHub repository, which you can, sorry, you can find in, I will update this in the GitHub repository. You can just find it, you will find all the changes there itself. So next we will come to dictionaries, and for the final part of our workshop, we'll come to dictionaries. So what is a dictionary in Python? So dictionaries just means it's basically a list, but it has 2 values for every element in that kind of. So that's a very extremely rough analogy. So let's see what happens in it. So dictionaries consist of a pair. So a pair of items. So one item will consist of two elements. So one will be a key and the other will be a value. So in a dictionary, you have seen in an English dictionary, the key is the word with which you search in the dictionary, and the value is going to be the definition of that word. So in Python, you don't have to strictly use words and definitions. You can use anything that you want. So Python dictionaries are also known as associative arrays or hash tables. So hash tables is a very known term for dictionaries. In comparison to a list can be called a dictionary with keys 0, 1, 2, 3. So for example, we'll omit that out for right now. So if we have a list, maybe the elements of this list are 1, 2, 3, 4. So it can be called a dictionary in the sense that the first key, which is the 0th key, is 1, the first key is 2, and so on. So in that sense, it can be called a dictionary. So this is an empty dictionary. The dictionary is defined with a pair of curly braces. So this is an empty dictionary. And if we print the type of that, it will give me class dictionary, DICT, which is a dictionary. So yeah, type function shows the type of the object as we have seen before. So now we'll construct a dictionary. So this one is, maybe you will be kind of daunted with what kind of syntax this is. So I will easen it out a bit. It can be also written like this. This kind of syntax you have maybe seen in C before. So yeah, name is Alice, age is 21. So if you print this, it's going to be just fine. So as long as your syntax is correct, everything is going to be fine. It's going to just print name and age. Name is Alice and age is 21. Now, the point of creating a dictionary is that you have to read it, and it has to make your life easier. So how do you read a dictionary? So just like a list, what you will do, you will pass in a key. So as you've seen before, for a list, if you pass in the 0th key, it will give you the first element and so on. So in that analogy that I mentioned, how list is similar to a dictionary. For a dictionary, you can pass in a key itself. You can pass in a string. So when you pass in a string name, it's going to give you Alice, because Alice is defined as the value for the key name. Now modifying a dictionary. So you have seen age here for Alice is 21. Now if I change the age to maybe 69, and if I play this, so name Alice, age 69. Now she's certainly very much older. So that's how you will modify an element in the dictionary. Now you can also add elements to a dictionary. So in that sense, the correct word to use for that is dictionary is mutable. So you can you can edit it, you can change it. It's not a tuple. So dictionary is mutable. So you can add a key, gender, female. So if I add that, so it will name, age, it will it already had the existing key and value, name Alice, age 69, and gender female. So it will add this last one right here. Now you can remove elements in the in the dictionary. So this is the existing dictionary that we have right here. Now we can just use del keyword, del space, and then the key. And when you do that, it will just remove the age. So only the name and the gender remains. So this is the basic operations that you will be using in a dictionary, and honestly, all the functions in a dictionary can be done with these simple operations. We have more operations and for more better tasks, and we will discuss them right now. So dictionary has no restrictions. So dictionary values have no restrictions. So anything can be used as a dictionary key. So values have no restriction whatsoever. It can be Python object, and if you don't know what Python object is, it's absolutely fine. It's just anything can be used as a dictionary value. As you learn more about Python, you will be more clear. Your clarity on what a Python object is will be better. So it can be the standard objects or user-defined objects, whatever. So it's not the same for the keys. It has to be unique in the dictionary. So repeated keys are not allowed. There can't be one and one. It has to be different keys, and keys will be immutable. So dictionary itself is mutable because you can delete it, you can edit it, but keys has to be immutable. You cannot change a key. If you want to change the key, you have to delete this key and then you have to add a new key. You cannot just change this. That's not possible. So in short, they must be hashable. So again, hashable is the right word to use for this one. They have to be hashable. So note that key of now also, of course, the does not need mentioning. If you guys have any doubt, you can just send them in the chat. We'll address them, or we'll address all of them. All right. So dictionary key one, A1 is A, 2 is B, and 2 is C. So as you can see, 2 is repeated right here. Keys cannot be repeated. So when I run this one, it is just going to use the last one. It's just going to completely, because 2, this was already assigned, then it's going to assign it again. So 2 is going to be assigned C, and this way the data will be lost. So keys cannot be repeated at all. So next one. So values do not have to be unique, of course. Does not need mentioning. Values can be anything. 2 can be B, 3 can be B. It's absolutely fine. Just like in a dictionary, two words can have the same meaning, but the same word cannot be repeated in a dictionary, right? So for the next one, for a particular dictionary, what is stored in the value can differ immensely. Even the keys can differ immensely. So here it's an integer. Here the key is an integer. Here the key is a string. Here the key is a float. And integer again. Here the value is so these things can differ at all. This anything can be anything, but it just has to be unique, as you say. All right. Of course, you can again this will give you an error. And why, as to why it will give you an error, because we have taken a key as 4 here, 4 right here. It's going to be a list, and a list is not hashable. All right, because it's not like unique thing, because if you do 4 0, it's just going to be 0. It's going to give you 4, and so it's just not hashable, it's not unique. So here it's an integer, here it's a string, a particular string, because it's immutable, and it's going to be right here 1.5. So yeah, lists are not hashable, while these other keys are hashable. So that's why it gives you an error. For the next one, functions on keys and values. So there are many functions defined on keys and values. So dict.keys is a very, very useful function. It will just give you the list of all the keys present in that dictionary. So here the keys are name, age, and gender. So when I play this, keys will be assigned list of d.keys. So d.keys, this thing right here, it's actually that yeah, it's an object. Yeah, so it will convert that thing into a list, and it will assign the variable keys to that. And when you print keys, it will just give you name, age, and gender. And when you see type of keys, it's going to be a list, because we use list right here. All right, same goes for values. The exact same analogy. It will give you the values alice 21 female, and when you print the value type of values, it is a dictionary. Give you dictionary values, because these are values of a dictionary. Yeah. Yeah. So dictionary items, dict.items. So when you do this, what it does is essentially it converts all the key value pairs. All right, so the key value pairs that happen, it converts them into a tuple, and that tuples are stored in a list. So it's basically a 2D list. All right, so this is a 2D list. Name Alice, age 21, gender female. So it converts them into a 2D list of name value pairs. And when you see the type of KV, that is a list. But if you see the type of elements in KV, that is going to be a tuple. All right. For the next one, we assigned A to this dictionary. For the next one, this is basically a simple syntax, and what it essentially does, it just prints all the values. So for dash, comma, values in a.items. So a.items, it's just going to give you all these key value pairs, and what it's going to do is it's just going to print the second element of all that. So the second elements in them is just going to be the 1 2 3 4, and it's just going to print all of them. So what you can also do is you can edit this out for much simpler thing. For values in a.items, you can use it right here, 1. Okay, right. So since since the values in it are actually that, right? Okay, so what it is. It's going to give me again. All right. Oh, my bad. Oh, sorry. Not values here. It's going to be 1 here. Again. All right. So let's just keep it what it was initially. Let's not break the code. So yeah, it's just going to print the values of the particular dictionary. For the next one, it's basically true 1, false 0. So it's a read write binary. Again, So yeah. So 10 greater than 50, that is a false statement. So what happens? A will be given the key false, and in key false the value is 0. So value is going to, that is going to be assigned as 0. Now dictionary comprehension. This is an interesting thing. So in a dictionary okay, I will have to so in dictionary comprehension you have keys and you have values. So how do you what do you do to maybe make this into a dictionary? So what you will do is d is equal to hope I'm still audible, because yeah. So what you will do is keys dot for keys dot I and values I, index I, for I in range len. Okay, I'll not use len, I'll just use in range 4 because there are 4 elements. So when I play this, so as you can see, it is converted into a dictionary with the corresponding elements in for the corresponding keys and values. Now this is an exercise that you can do. It's a very simple exercise and you're actually going to write this one. So I'm not going to do this exercise right here. It's quite nice. You should try it out, absolutely. For this next one, write a code to combine two dictionaries. I just gave you the code, and we have the okay, you have to combine two dictionaries right here. So of course, try to do this in the code with maybe separating keys and values or doing something like that. But a much simpler method to do this will be to use dict.update. So what it does is, if D is a dictionary, this one, and if you use d.update and use another dictionary inside it. So what happens is all these elements and all these values and keys and values will be updated in the initial D. So when you play it, initially it was just name, age, and gender. So name, age, and gender remains, but hobby and address will also be added. So take.update does that. Another exercise. So we have a dictionary of prices, certain items. Write a code to print the price when an item is provided, and if an item is not provided, it prints 0. So there is a function for that, dict.get, but there is a much simpler hint I will just give you. So I will just do, there's a very simple syntax for this. So there is A, B, and C inside this dictionary. So if I add E, E is not in a dictionary. So if I add E in, not prints, it's price. So E in price. So what if I do that? It's going to give me false because E is not in price. So if I do A, it's going to give me true. So maybe you can use this hint to perhaps to maybe solve this exercise without using dict.get. So now let's come to dict.get. What this function does, it's actually pretty self-explanatory. What it does is just gives you the value of that, or maybe if that it's present in it or not. So if you dict.get A, it's going to give you a value of 30. But if a certain element is not present inside that, so it's going to give you none, a none object. So because it's not present. So yeah, that is also something that you can use. So many ways to select, many ways to solve a single question. And if you do dict price.get e comma 0, it's going to give you 0. Just going to give you this one. So accessing keys not present in dictionary. So if you want to access some key that is not present in a dictionary, so for that, what will, so price here has only 3 keys, A, B, and C. If you do price n, it's going to give a key error. It's going to key error because that particular key is not present. Now, if you print price.get n, it's going to give you none. It's not going to give you an error. So when you are generally when you are developing a So generally when you are developing a Python program, you do not want for the entire program to stop just because of some error. So it's a good practice to do price.get so that you function, so that at least your program that you're running does not stop and it keeps running. So now next we'll come up to counting unique number of words in a. So it's a problem in general. It does not have to be do with dictionary, but it can be very easily solved with a dictionary, as you will see. So first I will do, Aditya is a great guy. You can see the great is repeated 3 times. And I have defined here a small function. Unique is a empty dictionary. And here is a for loop, key in words. It will go over all the words in this key. And if that key in unique, see this keyword, see this statement right here, key in unique. I used that before for the hint. So if that key exists in that dictionary, so for the first one, of course, it will not, but for the great, it will run this one. If it does not, if it exists, then for that key value, it will add +1. It will just add 1. And if it is not present, then it will assign a value of 1 to that. All right, so there is at least one occurrence. So when I play this, okay, oh, I have to actually print that. My bad. So next unique, we will print that. So A comes one times, Aditya comes 1 times, great comes 3 times, as you've seen, 3 times. Guy comes 1 and is also 1. So this is a great way to see if a word is repeating in a sentence. So here is a very long sentence in the, I'll comment the other one out. So here is a very long sentence with a lot of words, and then I will play this, and then again this. And now when I see what unique is, it will give me a list of all the keys and values. So you can see the comes 3 times, and in general it takes a hell lot of time to do all this by hand, and that is why we have code to do things that we are too lazy to do, or that is too impossible to do for us humans. For the next one, here is a lyrics, twinkle twinkle little star. I'll just assign that to lyrics, and when I play this, the other code, what it does, it creates an empty list. It will do a for loop, and it will split. You have seen what split does. It will split according to a space. So all the space characters are going to be separate. So twinkle and then this comma are going to be separate. R is going to be separate, and it will create a list of that. So this thing right here is a list. Now I colon -1. This that I have highlighted, what this thing does is that it will take that string and it will invert it. So if it is YOU, now this thing right here is going to be UOY. I can show that to you. So I will comment this one out. What I will do is print hello. So it is going to print hello. Now, since string is also kind of a list, string can be treated as list. Now if I do apply the same operator to this, now it will do ole. Oh, that's Spanish. Yeah, that's what it does. And when we do 0, it will just see the first element of that. So in here, twinkle twinkle little star, what it will do is it will rotate it completely 180 degrees, and the first element is going to be a comma. So our job is to detect all the commas and to remove them. So it will detect all the comma, and if it does detect, it will just append from the starting. Since no key is mentioned here, it will start from the beginning and -1 till the excluding the last. So it will just go from twinkle to E, T to E. And if it has no comma, it will just append the entire thing. So when we do that, it ran. And now if I do words, it will just going to print all of them without any commas or anything. And it will just give us the unique. And then again, you can use this unique one, and you can just find out how many unique words are there in it, which we will do right now. So now you can see twinkle is 1 times and another twinkle is also 1 times. Why is that? That is because it's a capital T and it's a small t. In Python or any language for that matter, capital and small have a significant difference. Of course, for HTML, HTML is case insensitive for the case sensitive languages. Now let's come to the exercise. Let's do it. Print a dictionary with keys from 0 to 9 as their values in squares and use dictionary comprehension to achieve the above. You can of course do this one. It's quite easy, but how will you do it with a dictionary comprehension? So that is actually quite simple. We don't actually need this line here as well. We can just comment it out. We'll just do d is equal to, okay, we'll just do it in the, okay. We'll use d is equal to in the curly braces. What we will do for the dictionary comprehension, x semicolon x to the power 2. So with their squares for x in range 10. So range 10 is essentially just 0, 10. 0, 10 means it will include 0 and it will exclude 10. So from 0 to 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which we want right here. So you can just do 10 and it means the same thing. So you can, when I play this, it will print D, it will print that, and it will just give me all the square integers. 7 has 49 with key and values, pairs. 9 has 81, and we have printed that. I can do that till 100, and it will give me a long as list. And yeah, of course, from till 99, 9801. So yeah, so this was the end of what we have to teach in this Python workshop. And with this, we come to the end. So if you guys have any question, we will unmute all the mics and you can ask them. Also, if you guys have any doubts, you can ask them in the chat as well. I hope, yeah, mics are enabled. Also, if you like guys have any maybe suggestions or okay, any resources for practice. So of course, the best resource for practice is just maybe what I did personally was I just followed YouTube and did a few tutorials. I did not even finish them. I just went to a few of them and they looked good. I did the projects. I really find it interesting. And the actual learning that happens is when you have any doubt and you go on to maybe Stack Overflow, you search your doubts in Google. That's where the actual practice happens. So for the resources, I would just say just take on any small project. Maybe you would want to make a calculator. So take that project, for instance, and then try to make it yourself. And if you come across any doubts, Google it or ask any your friends or anyone that you find who is reliable, and they can answer it for you. And that's actually where the real practice happens. So anyone else? If you're, oh yeah. Yes, of course. So this right here, uh, so the one that we showed for 8 of the Python notebooks, these are basic courses in Python that we have at KOSS IIT Kharagpur. We have created and curated. Now, we also have advanced courses which are also present in that, which you can also find with that Python notebook with a Google Colab. So if you're interested in any higher level, so you can go through them. And they also have exercises. They are also just like these. So quite fun. If you want to go through them, you can do that as well. Libraries like NumPy. So you have to import. Okay, are you asking whether they are explained in the advanced course? Is that correct? Okay, I'll unshare my screen. Okay, so I am not sure about that. I'll just have to see.
No, actually, NumPy, Matplotlib, Pandas are just, are required for data science purposes and general purposes. But here we are just teaching basics of language that Python has, not the libraries
Yeah,
exactly.
when you use NumPy and Pandas, that becomes very application related. So it depends from what application you have.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Concepts you need to know
yeah,
to get hands-on with libraries. Libraries are very easy to use.
Yeah, so
exactly.
in
So
advanced topics, you will get things like maps, lambda functions, object-oriented programming in Python. Stuff like that you can
so object-oriented programming that I explained, it's objects in Python are like quite it's not that complicated, but yeah, it's not easy to understand either. So all that is explained in advanced course as well. If you want to check it out yourself, so you can. So if anybody else has any doubts, they can ask in the chat.
Also, outside this workshop, after it ends, you can also post your queries in the queries channel of the team. If you have any problem with exercises or in general.
You can post in the queries channel anytime you want, even from 1 month from now. If you have not even conducted any workshop or anything, you can still post in the queries channel. We'll still answer them. So that is not any restriction whenever you do it. So we'll be more workshops in Python. So we have considered another workshop in Python, but if we do, will you will be let known in due time. Of course, for the annual Python workshop, it will be conducted again in the future. Absolutely. Okay,
Also, it
so
would be better if you can start applying this Python knowledge. In this basic, we try to cover whatever you will use in day-to-day purpose. But user specific and things are not yet covered. So once you get started with basics and start building things up, you will get accustomed with that part. So it's better to get hands on yourself, build some projects or anything. If you need any help, you can post.
yes, it's a great way to learn, and you will use Python in a lot of applications. Mm. So currently my department is physics, so I use it a lot, and I have a lot of use for it. So it helps me so much in my studies and everything. All right. So if nobody has any other doubts, so we'll conclude this workshop. Thank you all for joining, and have a good day. And of course, if you have any other doubts in the future, you can always use the queries channel at any time. Okay. So goodbye, goodbye everyone. Have a nice day.
Thanks for the session. It was helpful, very helpful.
Thank you for
Course
joining.
members are requested to remain in the meeting. Others can leave. Thank you.
We'll share the recording on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You can also access the recording from there.
and if you have any doubts, you can post your doubts in the queries channel. There's a channel in our course teams only. There's a queries channel, so you can put your doubts over there, and we will get back to you as soon as we can.